shelters are a familiar part of the urban environment. We hardly ever notice them, unless of course we're trying to catch a bus or we're trying to shelter from the rain. But I want to focus today on a bus shelter with a difference. But first I need to get away from this busy road in order to do the commentary on it. Most local bus shelters in the Felixstowe area are like this rather ordinary example opposite the Half Moon in Walton. But go down the high street and there's something much more out of the ordinary. Here it is standing near St Mary's Church. It looks old and is old, and the plaque on it shows that it has quite an interesting history, because it used to be Walton's prison cage. Local offenders were locked up in here pending removal to a proper prison, or just put into the stocks as part of any punishment that had been meted out to them. But that wasn't the original purpose of the structure, as a plaque on it indicates. Towns and villages often had a central point, a market cross, where travellers could pray, where local festivals were celebrated, and where visiting traders could come and peddle their wares. In many places, market crosses developed into covered marketplaces, where traders could shelter as they did business. Prosperous towns built elaborate market crosses, and some still exist today as symbols of flourishing markets. Walton's cage started life as a covered market cross, not like the grand town buildings, but as a shelter in the middle of the high street. It probably dates from the 1630s, but Walton as a village could never boast an elaborate structure, and being on the end of a peninsula probably didn't attract much more than local trade. By 1795, it was decided to make use of the market cross as a local prison cage, which is where Cage Lane gets its name from, as the cage was at its junction with the high street. Walls and windows were added, and then the entrance would have had an iron gate and bars. We also know that there were a set of stocks associated with it. Prison reform meant that by the middle of the 19th century, prison cages like the one in Walton were falling out of use. And in 1852 it was decided to move the cage from the middle of the high street to the corner of Maidstone Road. And there the building remained for a little over 50 years. By the end of the 19th century it was in a very dilapidated state indeed, with rough wooden boards on its side and roof, but still a little bit of an attraction as people used to come along and have their photos taken in the stocks. But by that time it was well out of use, the iron bars on the door gone, and generally looking in a very sorry state and only fit for firewood. But there was somebody who saw the potential in the building, and in 1910 it was bought by an Ipswich antique dealer and dismantled with the purpose of it being sold on to somebody else. The story, of course, didn't end here, as the cage was bought by a London industrialist, Charles Mason. Charles and his brother Dan ran a successful polish business in Chiswick. They regarded themselves as model employers, established modern factories with good working conditions, and had a commitment to the education and welfare of their employees. As part of this, they wanted a factory in a garden, which even included a bowling green. And it was facing the bowling green that Charles Mason put the cage as an interesting oldie-worldy feature. Mason's restoration of the cage was rather fanciful, with medieval-looking sides and red brick lower walls built from old bricks that came from somewhere in Sussex. Not quite what we'd expect of modern restoration, but those were different times. He even managed to get a whipping post from somewhere, but the stocks may well have been the originals. There the cage remained into the 1950s, when a campaign was started by the Reverend Ross Sage, the Vicar of St Mary's and a local councillor, to return the cage to Walton. The company, then called Chiswick Products, part of Reckitt and Coleman, agreed to give it back to Felixstowe. In 1957 it was returned to Walton as a bus shelter, only freed from where it was originally. As a local minister, I could probably draw lots of threads from this interesting story. What I'll say is this. Here we have a structure that has had four lives: a market cross, a prison cage, a place to sit near a bowling green, and as a bus shelter. The only reason why it still stands is that a few people saw the possibilities in this building at a time when it may have ended up as firewood. What do we think we're worth as human beings? Maybe we have useful and fulfilled lives, Or perhaps we're down, not feeling valued or valuable to anyone. Each one of us has an intrinsic worth to God. So much so that whoever we are, God was prepared to pay a high price for each one of us by coming to this earth to become one of us and die for us. Unlike the cage, which as a building is in the hands of whoever owns it, we have a choice of whether we want to recognise the value that God has placed on us, find forgiveness for what we've done wrong, and enter into a relation with Him, or we can just continue ignoring Him. I wonder where the cage would be now if the antique dealer hadn't bought it. If you'd like more information about the Christian faith, then do go to the link on the church website. Thanks for listening, and God bless you.